Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can, and I continue with The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Now, this episode will be nothing but reading the glossary, so the Bestiary and the characters tab, because there's a ton of them, and I haven't checked that out, so if you're not interested in hearing me read that, then you can just skip this episode. There will be no gameplay, in the strictest sense, in this one. Let's start with the bestiary. So, we've got beasts, starting with bears. Know that ditty about the bear climbing the mountain to see what he could see? The biggest load of rubbish I've ever heard. When a bear climbs a mountain, it's not to see, it's to hunt, to kill. John Oldak, Royal Huntsman. Bears are omnivores, meaning men find a place in their diet besides berries, roots, and salmon. When they attack on humans, they most frequently partake of the meat of travelers, unwittingly trespassing on their territory, or else that of hunters, for whom besting such a creature is a lifelong ambition. There are several subspecies of bears: black bears, polar bears, and cave bears, which differ from one another in coloring, as well as size and strength. All share a trait in common, however, a near unmatched ability to kill: dogs. They say a dog is a man's best friend, but in these foul times, one's best be wary even of his friends. Alfred Pankratz, beggar from Novigrad. Some claim dogs are the reflection of their masters. A well-trained pet repays his owner with loyalty and trust, whereas an ill-treated one often repays the treatment in kind as well, meeting yells with barks and kicks with bites. Since there is an abundance of bad men, so too is there an abundance of bad dogs. Most dangerous of all are the vagrant mutts who have lost all respect for men and developed a taste for blood and carrion. Wild boars. How doth the little wild boar improve his shining tusks, and rat them against the forest floor, and on the trees' rough husks? How cheerfully he seems to grin, how neatly spreads his claws, and welcomes little lasses in with gently smiling jaws. Louis of Carol, mathematician, author, and poet. These woodland beasts are as wild, untamed, nasty, and aggressive as the name implies. To this day, many peasants in outlying Kerweni villages believe wild boars persist on a diet of young maids, though in truth, they most often slate their hunger with roots and acorns. Do not think this vegetarian diet makes them harmless, however. In fact, these animals' stout build and sharp teeth render them veritable fur-covered combat machines. Mother Nature has additionally equipped them with a dual pair of tusks, upper pipes and the lower sabers, and this weaponry's sum effect is to make the beasts terror of the woods, a threat to all who venture or dwell there, human, humanoid, or otherwise. Boars also have hard, club-like snouts, which some peasants call their whistles, though no boar has ever been heard to make such a sound. Instead, they emit a characteristic ground, which sounds to some like the snoring of an extremely overweight man. Another peasant belief is to claim boars have an extremely prickly nature, and if offended, will vent their anger by knocking down fences and gobbling up potatoes. Though they sometimes live alone, boars usually appear in small groups of 3 to 5 specimens. Wolves. A friend of mine used to say that with all of those griffins and basilisks and whatnot, good old-fashioned wolves weren't nothing to worry about. Then the damned beast devoured half his flock. Ingvar Shepherd. Once upon a time, wolves were the absolute rulers of the forest. Men used them to frighten children, while adults too trembled at the sound of their howling. Post-conjunction monsters not only pushed wolves into the deepest wilds, but also took over their place in human nightmares. Yet that does not mean the old predators ceased to be a danger. Wolves do not have a drop of magic in them, breathe no fire and spit no acid, but that in no way stops them from killing unwary travelers and hunters. Particularly dangerous are wargs. a nasty and ferocious subspecies of wolves, and the snow-white wolves, which today can only be found in the wide highlands of the Skellige archipelago. Cursed ones, berserkers. Now finish your soup, or a berserker will come and swallow you whole, a Skellige mother scolding a child. Skellige legends speak of men known as berserkers who transform into bears and are overwhelmed by battle rage. In doing so, they lose all self-awareness and are driven by bloodlust, which they must satiate in order to return to human form. Few believe these blood-curdling tales. However, not even in Skellige, where the inhabitants usually treat them with the least probable legends, where the inhabitants usually treat even the least probable legends with the utmost gravity. This indicates either that the berserkers are in fact figments of mid-sodden imaginations, or else that they have learned to hide their abilities from the rest of the islanders. The scouts' ballads indicate a berserker transformed in the heat of battle cannot be distinguished from a true-born bear. Only minute anatomical details, such as the shape of their tongues and teeth, reveal their secrets. Descriptions of their fighting prowess paints them as invulnerable to pain and able to heal any wounds received almost at once. If these men-turned-beasts truly do exist, one can only suppose that, like werewolves and lycanthropes, they are particularly vulnerable to oils that can cause harm to cursed creatures. But if we are to give credence to ancient songs about these creatures' deeds, about the mass murders and massacres that they have committed, we can only hope that no witcher will have to test this hypothesis. Botchling. Saying a botchling is ugly is like saying shit is not particularly tasty. You can say it's a lie, but it doesn't exactly convey the whole truth either. Lambert, Witcher of the Wolfspoon. Botchlings are perhaps the most repulsive creatures the Witcher will ever have the displeasure of meeting. Born of the dead, unwanted babies, discarded without proper burial, their appearance is that of a partially decayed fetus, their unformed flesh twisted with hate, fear, and malice. These hideous creatures feed on the blood of pregnant women, driven by a mad hunger that most often leads to the victim's death. A botchling will emerge from its lair at night to lurk by the bedside of an expectant mother, draining her strength and that of her unborn progeny as she sleeps. A woman thus belly-guarded first suffers troubling dreams, then fever, delirium, and a general weakening of the flesh. After a few such nights, she is enfeebled and unable to defend itself. It is then that the botchling attacks directly, sinking its long, sharp fangs into the body and drinking the blood until both the mother and the fetus perish together. A botchling stands around 1.5 feet in height, but when threatened and if gorged with blood, it can change form. At such times, it grows into a deformed man, hunched over and striding ape-like on its forearms. Stronger and fiercer after this alteration, it hurls itself into direct physical combat, gnashing at its opponent or attacking him with sharp claws. A botchling curse can be lifted by transforming it into a lubberkin, a guardian spirit of the hearth that watches over the family it never knew, in the house it could never call home. Ulfedin. Ulfedin? What's that? Some kind of a fish? Professor Artibus Johannes Rack, geographer, disappeared during a surveying expedition in Skellige. Ulfedin are a breed of werewolf mainly found in Skellige. These harsh and barren conditions of the Isles might explain why they primarily hunt men and are stronger than their continental brethren. Older and particularly dangerous Ulfedin are called Vorefs. Only a few daring warriors in all of Skellige's history have managed to defeat one, and each of them is commemorated in ballads as a hero to this day. Like werewolves, Ulfedin and Vorefs are active at night, particularly when the moon is at its fullest. Fast, strong, and amazingly resilient, these creatures kill with disturbing ease. Silver blades should be brought against them, as should devil's puffball. Take note that when near dead, an Ulfedin becomes particularly dangerous and will attack with doubled fury, calling on wolves to come to its rescue. Werewolves. Wolves aren't as bad as they made out to be. Werewolves, though, they are every bit as bad, and worse. Elsa Virge, Archer. Werewolves are creatures with both men and wolves inside them. When in beastly form, they take the worst traits from each. The wolves strive to kill and hunger for raw flesh, an immense, cruel and calculating intelligence. A werewolf's condition comes about through a curse, and the transformation happens outside of his conscious control. When he reverts to human form, he has no memory of his deeds, otherwise he would surely go mad and take his own life. Werewolves are active at night, particularly when the moon is full. Though they hunt alone, when threatened they will summon wolves to aid them. Werewolves rarely feel the need to flee, for few adversaries put so much fight against them. They strike as swiftly as lightning with claws as sharp as razors, and regenerate any damage received in mere moments. When fighting werewolves, the Witcher should wield a blade covered in oils harmful to the cursed, and have a large supply of devil's pathballs handy. A werewolf's curse can be at times lifted, yet there is no universal surefire method of doing this. A Witcher seeking to undertake such a task must therefore equip himself with a great deal of patience and sturdy armor. Now, this is interesting because it says the werewolf doesn't remember what he does when he's transformed, but that seems to contradict a little bit parts from The Witcher 1, where there was a werewolf who literally used his condition to be, a werewolf superhero and fight crime while transformed. But obviously, because he was a guardsman, he was a captain of the guard in Vizima. But if he didn't remember anything, I'm not sure he could have made it work. Because he would have to utilize his human knowledge in the werewolf form, and then, to plan around. And I don't think if he didn't remember anything while being transformed, I'm not sure if that would have worked. The Draconids, Basilisks. In memory of the noble knight Roderick slain against a valiant struggle against the basilisk, let's hope the beast choked on his bones. Gravestone inscription in Vizima Cemetery. Contrary to popular belief, basilisks cannot turn anything into stone with their gaze. This is small comfort, however, given that their acid venom claws and teeth provide them many other ways to kill. Cockatrices. Had myself 8 heifers, 5 of them milchers, then this cockatrice sprung up nearby, and now all that I got left is dried patties in an empty field. Dretro, a peasant from Pendle. Foolish superstitions claim that cockatrices like basilisks can kill with their gaze alone. This is utter nonsense, however, and the cockatrice gaze being no more dangerous than that of an angry goose. One should instead watch out for its sharp beak, long tail, which it can whip with murderous effect. Forktails. Fuckers' tails are more like cleavers. Yavin Bak, veteran of the Mahakaman Volunteer Regiment. Forktails owe their quaint name to the long, sharp growths at the tip of their tails. A blow from this weapon can slice an oaken shield in two, along with the arm that was carrying it. Thus, the name conjures images of cruelty. Fighting a forktail is nothing like a dinner party, and it ends in death rather than dessert. Royal Wyvern. It were huge, and those teeth, we barely escaped. Wonder if it killed the traders. Horsons surely had it coming. Conversation overheard in Velen. A hunter who knows his prey's habits and behavior will rarely return from his hunt empty-handed. To know what forest paths deer are like to trod, to know in what muck boars will wallow, to guess where a hare will emerge from its burrow, that is half the battle. What most men do not know is that some monsters also possess such knowledge. For example, a royal wyvern from Velen had learned the danger of exposing itself to human eyes and arrows by flying high to pick out its prey from afar. Instead, it would lurk by the roadside and wait for military transport. In this way, it grew fat on salted pork and beer, expanding until it resembled a dragon more than anything else, or the other lesser members of its kind. The Witcher thus knew this beast would be much stronger and more resilient than a normal wyvern. One blow from it could kill, which is why he would need to avoid its charge at all costs. He would also be wise to force it to the ground with his crossbow or a bomb whenever it tries to fly in the air and hurl down in a deadly dive. In the end, the Witcher slew this hideous creature, though not without some difficulty. Thanks to this feat, the soldiers could once again send shipments of food and equipment needed to conduct the war. Whether this was a good or bad thing, this is an entirely different matter. Shrieker. Heard you have a problem. A monster you called Shrieker? Aye, prowls about it does. Snatches cows and goats, mostly, but it won't scorn a man if it runs into one. Conversation overheard at Crow's Perch. The monster tormenting the residents of Crow's Perch turned out to be a particularly nasty cockatrice. Geralt was not surprised that the Baron's men had been unable to stop it. They could not possibly withstand the surgical precision of its strikes, which slice open arteries and provoke an outpouring of blood only a swallow potion could hope to stop. Neither did they know how to force it to the ground with a crossbow, a bomb, or a sign, and then evade its charge by rolling under the monster's overstretched wing. Just when it seemed the villagers would have to live by the shadow of a bloodthirsty beast, to always look in the sky with fear, the Witcher arrived and put an end to the Shrieker for good. Wyverns. Most dangerous of all are royal wyverns, or as they are called in some circles, the royal parapanes in the Ars. Albina Totelkampf, lecturer in natural sciences at Aretusa. Wyverns are often mistaken for dragons, and though they are much smaller than their most famous kin and do not breathe fire, they are likewise extremely dangerous monsters. Especially feared are the so-called royal wyverns, who like their namesake monarchs, are exceptionally ornery and extremely deadly. Elemental. Earth elementals. How to survive an encounter with an earth elemental? Simply, run as fast as you can. Nino Morg, Bounty Hunter. Earth elementals are made of mud, clay, sand, and rock, clumped together with water and brought alive with magic. While seemingly slow and ponderous, these creatures are nevertheless dangerous and should be avoided at all costs. Gargoyles. Is it just me, or is that gargoyle ogling us? Lara Esteban, a burglar from Lochmuin. Gargoyles are stone statues, brought to life by magic in order to guard mages' laboratories and lairs from intruders. Their appearance alone has scared out more than one prospective burglar. Those who do not take fright at the sight of these horned and winged monstrosities usually die shortly thereafter, torn to shreds by their stony claws. Golems. If you want us to break through this wall, you're going to need 20 sappers, 7 mules, and 100 weight of saltpeter, or 1 golem. Vilmir Bras, foreman from Mount Carbon. Golems are mindless matter brought to life by a spell. They obey their creator's orders without question. Their boundless strength, ability to withstand pain, endless patience, and the fact that they do not need one jot of food or drink makes them best servants or guards anyone could ask for. Once provoked, they will not tire of battle until they have either crushed their opponent or are themselves crumbled to dust. Hounds of the Wild Hunt. Baying at the heels of the Wild Hunt are its hounds, fierce beasts which follow it like clouds trailing after a comet. Hushed legends speak of them losing their way at times and descending from the night sky to earth, cold and death following in their wake. Essie Blackjack Davin. Troubadourids. Born, or some experts believe, Born, or so some experts believe, of magic ice crystal, the hounds of the Wild Hunt race alongside their spectral masters. Like ravenous feral dogs, they are capable only of mindlessly attacking whatever crosses their path. The Apiarian Phantom. Something destroyed our fields and hives. We think it's an Apiarian Phantom. Holofernes Masendorf. The Empyrean phantom destroying the Macedorf family's hive turned out to be a lost hound of the Wild Hunt. When fighting such a beast, one must bear in mind three things. First of all, that its thick armor of ice covering it can only be pierced by strong blows. Second, that like any other frostborn creature, it is vulnerable to fire, the Ignisign included. Third and the last, that it shows no mercy. Though the hound fought fiercely, it nevertheless fell to the Witcher's blade. By killing this dangerous monster, Geralt saved the humans, halflings, and last but not least the bees of the area from further torment. Hybrids. Erinyas. A merchant once told me that I reminded him of an Erinya. Naturally, I immediately teleported him to one of their nests, so he would see for himself how ill-fitting comparison it was. Litanade, the sorcerers also known as Koro. Hard as it is to imagine, the Erinyas found in Skellige are even more repulsive and dangerous than the Harpies, their close relatives. Though well-rotten carrion is their food of choice, they will not turn up their noses at fresh meat, man-flesh included. When they spy a potential victim, Erinyas like Harpies or Shishingas will try to make full use of their strength and their numbers and their ability to control the sky. They will circle above their prey and attack from several directions at once, striking with razor-sharp talons and tearing their targets to shreds. While attacking, they aim for the neck, eyes, and other vital organs, often causing their prey to bleed to death as a result. In this way, a small flock of Erinyas is able to make quick work of a larger and better armed victims, who often are not able to defend themselves effectively from several opponents striking at once. Griffins, aye, half eagle, half tomcat, just like the one on the Lord's crest, except that one was carrying my dead cow instead of a scepter. Griffin attack witness, name unknown. Griffins were once found only in high mountains, where they would hunt marmots and wild goats. When humans encroached on their lands, however, griffins soon discovered a new source of much more plentiful and easier caught prey: cows, sheep, and shepherds. Though still wary of main roads and towns, where the folks with the means to hire a witcher are likely to dwell, these half-eagle, half-wildcat creatures have gone from the rarities to often encountered pests that are known throughout the northern realms. Especially hated are the subspecies known as the royal griffins and arch-griffins. Harpies. Most monsters don't usually keep any treasure in their lairs. Harpies, though, they like shiny things. Leto, Viper School Witcher. It is hard to say what is most repulsive about Harpies and their cousins, the Shishingas. Their hideous appearance, the overwhelming stench of rot and bird excrement that clings to them, or their blood-curdling screech. Suffice it to say that even rats, who dwell happily among the rankest fecal matter and rotten waste, give these nests a wide berth. Harpies' nests are often most found atop high cliffs or rocky ravines. Sure signs of having strayed near one are crumbling human and animal remains, guano-streaked rocks, and feathers littering the ground. Harpies and Shishingas hunt in flocks, consisting of a handful to up to 20 individuals. Though rather cowardly and cautious, Harpies fiercely defend their nests and will not hesitate to attack when outnumbering their foes. During combat, they use their ability to fly to dive swiftly to strike their victims one by one before soaring back out of reach. They can kill with their wings or their sharp beak and talons. Once on the ground, they move slowly and clumsily and thus no longer present much of a threat. Sirens. Out at sea, if you hear a beautiful woman singing, turn the ship around at once, you understand? Even if it means sailing straight back into a storm. Arikeo Hinsarfjall, advice given to his son before his first solo voyage. Like skilled hunters setting out wooden ducks to lure in drakes, sirens and lamias lure men near, using their own bodies as decoys. They can transform to resemble beautiful human maidens, though with tails covered in silver scales instead of legs. Once a naive sailor gets within an arm's reach of these beautiful creatures, their faces suddenly turn to to fang-filled fish-like maws and lovely tails promising unknown delights become sharp, death-dealing talons. One legend claims that sirens and lamias were once friendly towards men, and supposedly were even known, albeit on rare occasion, to accept some sailors' clumsy attempts at courtship. In our days, however, they are decidedly aggressive, perhaps soured by the numerous kidnappings carried out by frustrated sea souls. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain: these days those monsters display no sign of goodwill, and when spotting one of them, one should immediately reach for one's silver sword. Sirens and lamias, the sirens' more dangerous cousins, usually hunt in flocks, making use of their numbers as well as their ability to move effortlessly through water and air. On ground, however, they are virtually defenseless, and so a wise tactic is to damage their fin-like wings, force them to land. The Igni sign provides effective when fighting against them. Threatened or injured sirens will let out a terrifying shriek, leaving their opponents stunned while they can escape, and their sisters can swoop down for an easy attack. Succubi. Again? Good grief, woman, I'm spent. Lester of Smolton to a succubus, a few days before taking a vow of celibacy. Unlike other monsters, succubi and menads feel no desire to kill, do not crave human blood, and usually do not in fact mean any harm at all. They are motivated by one thing only: their insatiable lust. They try in vain to slake this by engaging in sexual acts with any other humanoid species they encounter. While it must be admitted that their victims rarely put up much of a resistance, this does not mean the succubi and menads do not present any danger. Their never-ending advances, though pleasurable at first, have pushed more than one man to madness or even death. Succubi and menads usually can be found near human settlements, including small villages and populous cities. They prowl at night, though when stricken by serious need, they will leave their lairs during the day as well. They shower their affections on men as well as women, the young as well as the old, the ugly as well as the beautiful. Some of them are particularly fond of pastors and other holy men, whose seduction they treat as a sort of game. Though succubi are peaceful by nature, when forced to fight they will defend themselves fiercely. One should thus not be fooled by their appearance. Under the velvety skin of their arms lie muscles of iron, and blows delivered with their rear goat-like legs or the thick horns on their heads can easily crush bone. Insectoids. Arahase. Let sleeping Arahase lie. Elven proverb. Powerful pincers, a maw filled with razor-sharp teeth, and venom glands packed with deadly toxins, these constitute the Araha's deadly arsenal. Since people and farm animals make up an important part of this creature's diet, contracts on Arahase in turn constitute an important source of Witcher coin. Once native to the far south, this invasive species migrated north over the course of decades, adjusting as it went to new climates and temperatures. It found the deep woodlands and swamps most habitable and made them its home, making the use of muck and moss found there as blankets during winter hibernation. The Arahas hides its unprotected sack-like abdomen under a covering of hollow tree trunks worn on its back. At first glance, a stationary Arahas will often look like a part of the forest undergrowth, a fact that it uses to deadly advantage when hunting. It usually begins a battle by spitting venom and tries to grab its prey with prehensile feelers in order to drag it within the reach of its crushing pincers. Arachnomorph. The spider shall never lie down with the fly, and Ciri proverb. A similar saying could gain ground in our land concerning arachnomorphs and everything unable to flee them, meaning most every creature in the world. True, the tillers of the earth and the feelers of the trees do not need to fear them in their daily labors, for arachnomorphs, as distant post-conjunction cousins of common spiders, strongly prefer deep dark caves and unfrequented southern swamps. Anyone who does come across them, however, had best hope his conscience is clear and his worldly affairs are in order, for his life shall soon end, and not even the fastest man in the world can outrun them, and only a few witchers can hope to slay them. Even worse are the most aggressive and dangerous kind, known as the arachnomorph colossi, which are capable of devouring an entire ox in seconds. Apparently they are susceptible to Ard as well. Interesting. I definitely had quite a lot of trouble with them, so, I can attest to this being true. Armored Arahase. That's the kind of John we call Armored Arahas, hard and pretty on the outside, but get him undressed and everything's soft and squishy. Foxy Liza, a Maribor prostitute. An Arahas's only weakness is its soft, sensitive abdomen. Some Arahase hide this under hollow tree stumps, while other, armored varieties exist that have grown a thick carapace that covers the most delicate parts of their bodies. An armored Arahas is a true behemoth. It uses its enormous mass to knock over and trample its victims, then devour their crushed remains. Like all Arahase, it is highly venomous, and thus the golden aureole should always be consumed before fighting it. It is also worthwhile to keep stock on healing potions and crossbow bolts before getting out, for the Arahas's thick clothing can withstand a great deal of damage, making battles with it a long and exhausting affair. Endraga warriors. Scared of those Endragas, are you? Just wait until you see the warriors. Klaus Altman, Forester. Endless waves of Endraga workers are enough to overcome most attackers, but when confronting most dangerous foes, Endraga colonies unleash their larger, stronger members, the so-called warriors. The caste only lives to fight, and gets ample opportunity to do so while defending the colony's borders or conquering new territory. Endraga workers. I thought the workers were harmless. I thought wrong. John the Gimp, Trapper. Workers are the most numerous, and thus the most frequently encountered caste of Endraga. Within the colony, their duties lies in building nests and cocoons, acquiring food and caring for eggs and larvae. When threatened, they will summon warriors to aid them, yet if forced to defend themselves they will, and do so surprisingly well. Venomous Arahase. Barely nicked me, I'll be fine. Last words of an unknown hunter. Though all Arahase are highly venomous, this breed produces an especially strong toxin. A few drops are enough to kill a grown man, unless that man is a witcher, whose mutations will neutralize small amounts of this venom. Large quantities will kill anything they touch, with mutations only prolonging an inevitable and painful death in such instances. Venomous Arahase produce colossal amounts of this toxin and deploy it in combat in many ways. Before striking, Venomous Arahas will cover its pincers and teeth with a thick coating of this deadly liquid. It will then squirt its venom at its opponent to weaken it, and often locked in direct combat, it will continue spraying the noxious ooze all around itself, menacing every breath it brings, meaning every breath brings its victim closer to death. Like other members of its species, Venomous Arahase use prehensile feelers to grab and immobilize the prey. While attempting to fight such a creature, a witcher should drink the golden aureole, which will reduce the body's vulnerability to poison, and then attack from a safe distance with a crossbow or bombs before dealing the finishing blow with a silver sword enhanced with a coating of insectoid oil. Necrophages. Alguls. An Algul is basically a badass ghoul, the Yarpen-Zigrin dwarven warrior. Alguls differ from normal ghouls in size, strength, coloring, and most importantly intelligence. Whereas ghouls and gravers are primitive creatures, unfit to plan even the simplest ambush, Alguls and their kindred, such as Centaurs, are capable of forethought and are thus much more dangerous. Drowners. When at the water's edge you gotta be quiet, First of all, as not to scare the fish. Second, so we do not attract drowners. Janek of Blaviken, a fisherman. A drowner resembles a corpse that was dredged from the bottom of the pond. It is sickly blue or green in color, with slime and sludge oozing out of every pore, and the acrid stench of rot wafting off of it. This is why it is often thought that drowners, along with their more dangerous cousins, vodniks, maknixes, and drowned dead, arise from the bodies of those who drown in shallow water, lost travelers falling into bogs, children who swim too far from the shore, or in the case of vodniks, inebriated peasants who stumble off of narrow swamp trails. Foglets. If night ever catches you in the swamps, stay put and wait for dawn, even if it means standing waist deep in water with leeches crawling down your trousers. Most importantly of all, if you see a light in the fog, never, and I mean never, go towards it. Johannes Strand, Guide. Fog is a traveler's foe. In the forest, it can make one lose one's way. At sea, it can send one sailing into the rocks. Yet such dangers are nothing compared to the monsters known as foglets, which sometimes lurk within it. These creatures have powerful eye arms, like the Zerikanian Kinjals, yet what makes them truly dangerous is their mastery of deception, beguilement and disorientation. Many times, they need not attack at all, instead simply driving their prey to madness or into boggy marshlands, after which they will patiently wait for it to drown in the muddy waters. Ghouls. Ghouls creep and crawl at night, eating everything in sight. In a snap they will eat you too, chop you up for ghoulish stew. Children rhyme. Ghouls and graveyards are hard to describe. In part they resemble humans, yet on the whole they are the utter negation of all that is human. Though they have arms and legs like men, they walk on all fours like dogs or badgers. Though they have eerily familiar faces, one searches them in vain for any sign of sentiment, reason, or even a spark of consciousness. They are driven by one thing and one thing only: insatiable craving for human flesh. Grave hags. Cremation. Now that's one thing men could learn from gnomes. Burying bodies out in the fields, why? It's like laying out a welcome mat for monsters. Best case scenario, some ghouls will sniff them out, eat their fill and be on their ghoulish way. But if God forbid a grave hag takes to feeding on your cemetery, you will have no end of trouble. Jacques de Villepin, Oxenford Academy. Few monsters' names fitted as well as the grave hags. As one might guess, these creatures resembled aged, deformed women and loiter near graveyards and battlefields. Grave hags feed on human corpses, and in particular on the rotten marrow which they slurp from human bodies using their long prehensile tongues. Once a hag has devoured all corpses within reach, she turns to killing men and burying them in the cemetery as she waits for them to decompose. Ignis Fatuus. Careful, sir, a monster prowls this bog. Enter the mist and you'll never see your home again. Leslav, a peace digger. The monster hunting the peat bogs of Velen turned out to be an ancient foglet. These are exceptionally long-lived creatures. Some have even dwelled on this earth for over 200 years, growing stronger and stronger all the while. Blows dealt by foglets of such an age carry so much power that blocking them is out of the question. These foglets possess an ability to move extremely quickly, and not even Eardom can slow them down. Furthermore, they can melt completely into the mist, then suddenly materialize to strike from behind. Wearing heavy armor or making good use of Gwensine is highly recommended. This ancient foglet proved particularly adept in the art of forming illusions. Only a professional monster slayer, skilled with signs and swords, could best such a foe. Luckily, Geralt fit that description perfectly. Mornard. Somebody's doing some cooking. This is a human femur, a child's. Geralt of Rivia. Most grave hags rarely attack humans, preferring instead to feed on rotten remains they dig out of graves. Yet some individuals grow bold over the years and begin sneaking into huts to steal children and kill elderly. Such a monster was tormenting the inhabitants of Lindenvale. The Witcher knew that this grave hag would put up a fierce fight. He would have to watch out for her powerful claws, capable of smashing through any parry or block, and her long venomous tongue. He also realized that her attacks would be so quick not even his mutated reflexes could be able to keep pace, meaning only judicious use of Irdensign would allow him to survive and conquer. The outcome of the fight was not hard to predict. The grave hag perished in the very graveyard which had before served as her feeding grounds, and her body was dumped in a grave she has dug with her own claws. Rot fiends. Of course it reeks. They are called rot fiends because they smell like roses. Vesemir, Witcher of the Wolf School. Rot fiends resemble decomposing human bodies that have been stripped of their skin. Their presence is given away by their overwhelming stench of rot, which gives them their name. Devourers are the particular dangerous kind of rot fiend, marked by an insatiable appetite for human flesh. Water hags. Some say water hags are drowners' wives. If that be true, it ain't no wonder why they are such ornery bitches. Schemmel of Dredson. Some tales mention water hags and swamp binns masquerading as lost women to lure travelers back into the rickety shacks they built in the wetlands. In truth, only a blind man or a sighted man blinded with drink could mistake the rank sludge and rotting carrion of water hag's den for a cozy cottage, and the hideous hag herself for an innocent grandmother. Their wrinkled, wart-covered bodies stand nearly 2 yards tall, with skin the color of a long-dead cadaver and the stinking of muck and fish. Bony growths, 2 span long, stick out of their backs, with hair like a tangle of seaweed and clean claws that would make a werewolf proud. Completing the picture. Ogroids. Cyclopses. How about this? We take the big stake, sharpen its tip, jam it into the Cyclops' eye, then sneak out of the cave, disguised as sheep. How's that not a good idea? Odes Taka, a traveler, died tragically on Spikerov. Now, this is obviously a reference to Odysseus, because that happened in Odyssey, dressing as sheep. This guy's name, refers to Odysseus as well. Cyclopses can easily be recognized by the single eye located in the center of their foreheads. If for some reason that is not visible, other telltale signs are their enormous size, incredible strength, and a seething hatred for all humans. Neckers. Take heed, gents. There's neckers under this bridge. If you all cross at once without slowing or stopping, there's nothing to fear, but if your cart throws an axle and you get stuck out there, well, close your eyes and pray to Melitele. Kurt Hammerbach, city guardsman in Vangerberg. A lone necker is harmless, 5 are dangerous, 10 can kill even a veteran monster slayer. Particularly troublesome are the larger, stronger individuals known as warriors, as well as the rare breed known as Fukas. Rock trolls. Men must readily talk, but no tricksy or troll boom man's head. A rock troll dwelling in a cave on Undvik. If while hiking in high mountains you come across a walking stone, do not think your eyes deceive you. Instead, draw your sword, for before you stands a rock troll. True, not every encounter with such creatures ends in a fight. While not particularly intelligent, trolls are capable of reason, but it is better to prepare for the worst. Otherwise, your hike may end not on a summit, but in their stew. Shorts are smaller than fiends, true, but still big enough to kill. Agnes Thistle, a herbalist from the Black Forest. Trolls are somewhat smaller, kin of fiends and bumback witches. Yet any witchers who think their diminutive statures mean they present no danger commit a grave error, the kind that can end their careers permanently. These denizens of the dark and ancient woods are some of the most dangerous monsters known to men. The crones. Sister crones, hand in hand, terrors of the sea and land, thus do go about, thrice to dine and thrice to mine, and thrice again to make up 9. Macbeth, Act 1, Scene 3. So this is obviously, a reference to Macbeth. Like, it literally changed one letter. Because obviously there are famously witches in Macbeth, 3 of them in fact. So, the isolated corners of the world harbor creatures older than humans, older than the academies and mages, older even than elves and dwarves. The crones of Crookback Bog are such creatures. No one knows their true names, nor what breed of monstrosity they in fact are. Common folk have given these sisters the names Weavers, Brewers and Whispers, and they call the threesome the Ladies of the Woods, or the Good Ladies. The crones act as true sovereigns of Velen, whose inhabitants they help survive through harsh times. In return for unquestioning obedience, they wield powerful magic, but one different from that of mages. They draw power from water and earth, and are bound to the land in which they live. The crones can hear everything that happens in the woods, predict the future, twist the fates of human lives, and bring blessings as well as curses. The crones seem for all intents and purposes to be immortal. Magic elixirs keep them from aging, and allow them to take an appearance of young women. These elixirs and their mystical ties to swamps in which they live also give them supernatural strength and vitality. Fiends. I regret to inform your grace that your grace's son fell ill while hunting a fiend. He died on the spot. Fell while hunting a fiend. He died on the spot along with his squire, his guide, the beaters, his peasant entourage and his hounds. Kavin Jaun, manager of the Villepen estate near Vizima. Fiends are walking mountains of muscles, capped with a horned, tooth-filled head. Like their rarer cousins, Bumback witches, they live in thick forests, swamps and bogs. When possible they avoid humans, but when not possible they will kill them, and without much difficulty. Godlings. Not so long ago, the areas around peasant hamlets were chock full of guardian spirits. Today it's nigh on to impossible to spot a brownie, a buka or a latin, and godlings, they are always the first to go. Such is the price we pay for civilization's forward march. From the preface to The World We Have Lost by Professor Dorigway. Godlings, sometimes mistaken for Lutin, are woodland creatures dwelling in burrows and moss-covered hollow stumps on the outskirts of human settlements. They are similar to children in behavior and appearance, and like children they delight in mischief. Godlings are deeply rooted in their home territory and perform acts of care and guardianship to those dwelling near their burrows. They watch over people as well as animals, but shy creatures by nature, they try to do so while remaining unseen. Godlings are drawn to joy and innocence, and so delight in the company of children, and usually only show themselves to the young. These hard-working and clever creatures gladly perform small services for those in their care, asking only for respect and payment in form of food or cast of tools in return. They are easily offended by churlish, ungrateful, or simply rude behavior. Godlings also treasure their peace and quiet. When the village a godling watches becomes too populous or its inhabitants forget the old ways, it will abandon its burrow for good and walk off in destinations unknown. Howler. Hear about the contract. Any idea what monster this is? Nah, but it's proper huge. Slaughtered no less than a dozen wolves. Conversation overheard in Lindendale. One is hard-pressed to name another area of the world more thoroughly riddled with monsters than Velen. There is one silver lining to this sad fact, however. The beasts living there must compete fiercely for hunting territory, meaning monsters often end up killing other monsters. An aggressive chort known as the Howler went on such a fratricidal rampage, tearing a pack of wolves to shreds before attacking and killing a fiend significantly larger than itself. Howler was a truly fearsome foe. Each one of its blows was enough to kill. Only heavy armor or the Quen sign could protect one from mortal damage, particularly to be avoided with its charge, however, and whenever possible, the monster was best attacked from the side. Geralt slayed the Howler without much trouble, yet killing such a fierce monster might have very well proved impossible had not its previous conflicts with its monstrous kind weakened it considerably. The lesson, I suppose, is that when two monsters fight, the Witcher wins. Lessons. Never hunt in these woods. Never. Even if it means the whole village starves. Mulliver, an ealdorman of the Hoshberg in Lower Eden. Lessons dwell in dense primeval woods. Fiercely territorial creatures, they hunt with stealth and cunning as their only companions. They use inborn magic to control plants and animals within their territory, and so when stalking them, half the battle is merely getting near enough to strike. Lessons are old enough to earn the appellation Ancient, and they wield advanced tactics and skills that make them particularly dangerous. Sylvans. Sylvans are cruel, greedy, and treacherous. Still, I prefer them to the one. Yavin, legendary Scoia'tael commander. Sylvan and Yakshas, a kindred spirit, are extremely rare woodland creatures whose appearance combines that of goats and rotund men. These beings usually pose little danger, for they limit their contact with humans to playing harmless, though often bothersome tricks and eating crops from their fields. Spectres. Devil by the Well. Wears a dirty dress, all rags, its skin flaking off its bones, and it howls like it's suffering. Eodolan of White Orchard. The residents of White Orchard have suffered more than their fair share of misfortunes. Passing armies have trampled their spring planting, a griffin began abducting their livestock, and the rotten icing of this painful cake, and Moonwraith haunted a nearby well. No wonder the locals called this final evil a devil. The Witcher could sense something bound her to this place, and that in order to send her off into the ethereal realms, he would first need to learn her secret. Once that was done, he would have to prepare for battle, and when Moonwraith is a demanding opponent, she can disorient her victim by blinding them and creating mirror images of herself. These copies slowly sack their victim's life's energy, while their mistress remains untouchable. In order to defeat her, the Witcher could not only rely on his silver sword alone. The Irden sign would also be needed to trap her and force her to take a material form. Witchers don't usually feel Witchers don't normally feel a limited range of emotions regarding the monsters they slay. They despise the particularly cruel ones and are repulsed by the disgusting ones, but rare indeed is a monsters for which they feel sympathy. Yet that is exactly what Geralt felt for the Moonwraith of White Orchard. For a long time, he was haunted by the thoughts of this young woman whose horrible death and powerful emotions had transformed her into that terrible monster. Jenny of the Woods. So that's to mean our Zulas the Wraith, Bolko, the Ealdorman of Midcopse. It is said that true love's flame is never extinguished. The sad truth is the reason why Zula of Midcopse, whose early death had separated her from her beloved, was unable to find peace in the next life, and instead returned to haunt her former environs as a night wraith. Fighting such an apparition is extremely difficult, and Night Wraith will form mirror images for herself to confuse her opponents and aid her in battle. She herself can take on an immaterial form, rendering her invulnerable to blows. The best way to force her out is to set a trap with the Irden sign, and quickly follow with Igni when she is caught. most importantly of all, never attempt to fight one in the middle of the night, when the moon hangs high in the sky. This vengeful wraith would surely have killed every one inhabitant of the village, had not the famous witcher Geralt of Rivia appeared in Velen, and been in need of a bit of coin. Night Raids. Night Raids exude this immense sadness, this helpless wrath. I fear them same as anyone, but most of all I feel sorry for them. Adeline Altsvar, Elven Troubadourids. Compared to other creatures of the night, Katakans, Nekurats and werewolves for example, Night Raids and their rarer cousins Dusk Raids might not seem all that dangerous. After all, one might ask, how much harm could a pale, withered woman in a tattered dress do? The answer is quite a bit. Instead of finding this out the hard way, avoid crossing fields and meadows at night at all costs. Like noon raids, night raids only appear in rural areas. Travelers fall victims to them more often, but if legends are to believe, they also sneak in huts and murder peasants in their sleep. When they attack, night raids remain immaterial for most of the time, meaning physical blows pass right through them. They only take the more tangible form for a brief moment in which they strike. When weakened, they will create several projections of themselves, which cannot attack directly, but act as transmitters of sorts, through which the night raid can sap her victim's life energy. Night raids can turn immaterial, and are at such times very difficult to wound. In order for one to take corporeal form, trap it with the Irden sign, or hit it with a blast of a moondust bomb. Do not believe the old wife tales, and think yourself completely safe from night raids during the day. They appear under the light of the sun as well, but are much weaker than after dusk. Noon raids. Despite what is commonly thought, peasants do not interrupt their labors at midnight to get out of the sun. They do so to avoid noon raids. Vlad Raymond, peasants and their customs. Now, this is again a very direct reference to Władysław Raymond, who is was a Polish Nobel Literature Prize winner, and his most famous work, and the one that that directly led to him getting the Nobel Prize, was a book called Peasants. So that's about him. On particularly, there's actually, in the moment where I'm playing this, there is a very well-made movie based on that book with a very interesting art style, because it is a live-action movie, but it has like animation elements which look like paintings. Like, it's kind of difficult to describe, but it won several awards and is generally very well received. On particularly searing summer days, when the sun reaches its zenith, raids will at times appear, resembling sun-scorched women dressed in long white robes. These are noon raids, the spirits of young women who died violent deaths right before their weddings. Driven mad with pain or anger, they wander the fields in searching for their unfaithful lovers or backstabbing rivals, though they will kill anyone who does not get out of their way in time. They are often held in this world by some object of intense emotional significance. That is why, if one ever finds a wedding ring or a torn veil in the middle of a field, one should not pick it up, but instead back as far away as possible. Noon raids are only known to haunt rural areas and usually stay near the place of their deaths. They prey on peasants working the fields or children playing nearby. Noon raids do not bleed and are for the most part immune to the effects of the Witcher signs. They can create mirror images of themselves which circle their victims in a kind of morbid parody of a dance. This ghastly ritual drains the victim's life energy while adding to their own strength. Noon raids are also able to manipulate the physical world to a limited degree, kicking up clouds of dust which temporarily blind and disorient their opponents. Noon raids can turn immaterial and are at such times very difficult to wound. In order to force a Noonwraith to take a corporeal form, one must trap it with the Irden sign, or strike it with a Moondust bomb. Once the monster has regained physical presence, one can mount a fast attack with a silver blade, preferably one coated in spectral oil. Contrary to popular belief, Noonwraiths can also be encountered at night, but are much weaker than during the day. Plague Maidens. Patients seem to have hallucinations of a woman covered in scabs and boils, with rats scurrying all around her. These ravings subsided after an administration of henbane and poppy extract. Joachim von Gratz notes, Vilmerius Hospital in Novigrad. When a plague ravages a region, a spirit will sometimes walk in its lands, a ghost resembling an ill woman, whose flesh rots off her bones, and in whose wake crawls and cavalcaded rats. No one knows whether the spirit brings the pox with her, or is merely drawn to it like a moth to light. Yet it is certain that she delights in dealing pain and suffering, in hearing the howling and moaning of men. Many have called into question the very existence of plague maidens, or pestae as they are sometimes called. Only 2 sightings of such creature has ever been recorded, both during times of raging epidemic. As the name plague maiden suggests, these raids will take the appearance of females, though why exactly that is remains a mystery. Some speculate that they, like other such specters, arise from powerful emotional charge associated with certain circumstances of death, such as a death preceded by a long and particularly painful illness. Not much is known about how to fight a plague maiden, though one could assume they possess many traits in common with other phantoms and wraiths. They undoubtedly pose a great danger, though a witcher's immunities should at least prevent him from catching the contagious illnesses that they carry. Red Miasma. It is often said that the darkest recesses of caves play home to the continent's most fearsome monsters, against which there is little hope of victory or escape. The lone solution, then, is to seal them off from the world, with the hope they shall forever remain buried. A certain priest of the eternal fire, however, learned that hope and prayer is sometimes not enough. The coverer's mind within Devil's Pit holds a spectre whose very existence is believed to breed pestilence. With a threat of its release now imminent, the cleric seeks a new solution, the aid of a witcher. The being that haunted Devil's Pit turned out to be a red miasmal, whereas a plague maiden is thought to be a damned spirit, once human but now cursed to spread the pestilence. A miasmal, by contrast, is considered an evil force, born from the collective suffering of plague victims. It has the ability to possess human bodies, thus granting its corporeal form and the means to wreak havoc. This process, however, irreparably corrupts and damages the host, causing the miasmal to continuously seek stronger, more durable bodies. What cruel irony, then, that a witcher's immunity makes the monster slayer a perfect shell for the spectre to invade and control. Fortunately, a red miasmal's power is not so absolute that it cannot be defeated by an experienced witcher, though even then only with considerable effort. The spectre, once weakened, can be trapped with the Irden sign and then expelled from the host's body with Ard, thus creating an opening with which to defeat it. Consuming Reynald's filter offers an advantage by increasing the intensity of witcher signs. The White Lady. Miko and his band? Who are they? 4 lads, drunkards and good for nothings, that's all. They drained a few pints and decided that they would plow the White Lady, and maybe then she would bugger off. A conversation overheard outside Novigrad. The apparition haunting the fields outside Novigrad turned out to be a Noonwraith. Some powerful emotion must have bound her to this place. Love, hate, anger, or perhaps all 3 at once. Like every wraith of this type, she was surely capable of forming mirror images of herself, which served to mislead opponents and restore her vitality. Luckily, these mirages can be dispelled with a quick slash from a silver blade. Like any Noonwraith, she would undoubtedly seek to assume a material form while fighting, making her almost impossible to endure, unless she was first caught in a trap laid by the Irden sign, or blasted with a special bomb. Once thus forced into materiality, she would be attacked with strong blows or the Ignicide. Finally, one must always keep in mind the Witcher's sayings: the longer you fight in Moonwraith, the lower your chances of surviving, and fight in Moonwraith at midday and you'll be dead before dusk. The vengeful spirit known as the White Lady had roamed the fields for a long time, murdering anyone it came across. Though the grain hung heavy from the stalks, the frightened peasants were kept from harvesting it and thus faced famine. They gathered the last bit of their savings and went in together on a bounty for a witcher. That was coin well spent. Rates. Finish all of your business before you die. Bid your loved ones farewell, write your will. Apologize to those you have wronged. Otherwise, you will never truly leave this world. Paul Vicar, a peasant healer, advised to a dying man. Clerics and scholars are forever debating whether spirits do in fact journey to another world after death, one where eternal joy or suffering exists. Both groups agree, however, on what happens to spirits who, for one reason or another, remain in our world after their bodies breathes its last. They are transformed into wraiths. To hear their mournful howls, one can surmise that it is not a fate to be envied. Vampires. Ekimaras. It's nothing to fear. Ekimaras, why, they ain't nothing more than overgrown bats. Anonymous city guardsman last words. Like other vampires, Ekimaras are not, despite what the village gossip might say, undead humans. They are instead post-conjunction monsters who have no particular feeling about garlic, holy water or religious symbols. Unlike their portrayals in ballads and legends, they look nothing like handsome pale aristocrats with charming eastern accents, however. Though like catachans or nocrats, they bear a strong resemblance to overgrown bats. They also do not suck blood from the necks of virgins with a delicate kiss-like bite. They tear them to shreds, using long, sharp claws, and then slurp the splattered blood of the ground. Ekimaras are unusually cruel and exceptionally swift. They are able to quickly land blow after blow, capable of smashing even the best Mahakaman-made armor into tiny shreds. They should be fought with a silver sword, remembering that they can regenerate back to health over time. One should thus never attempt to tire them out, or God forbid, wait for them to bleed to death. Instead, cut them down as quickly as possible, and if possible burn the body and scatter it to the four winds. Guile, vampire bites, and the strong stench of alcohol. Geralt of Rivia. Contrary to popular beliefs, monsters are not all alike. Like people, individual members of the same species can each have their own unique traits, preferences, and weaknesses. A good example of this is the Catachan, which has once fed on the inhabitants of Oxenfurt, perhaps influenced by its close proximity to the hard-drinking student youth of the city. This vampire has developed a keen appetite for blood spiked with hefty doses of hard alcohol, and also baubles and gaudy jewelry of all kind. The vampire had clearly thrived in its high-octane diet. It had grown exceptionally strong and gained the ability to regenerate its lost life quickly, cause heavy bleeding with its claws, and, if all that were not enough, melt into air and appear again behind its opponent's back. Luckily, the Quen sign meant that the Witcher was well equipped to defend against this surprise attack, and the Earden sign would let him catch the monster in a trap. To bait the vampire, Geralt took note of its dietary preferences and seasoned his blood to match by loading it on cheap wine. This made it somewhat harder to aim his blows true, but he still managed to defeat the beast, then had another battle awaiting him in the morning, this one against the powerful Hangover. Higher vampires. Men, the polite ones at least, would call me a monster, a blood-drinking freak. Emil Regis, higher vampire. Only a mutual thirst for blood links higher vampires to their distant and most primitive cousins, Ekimaras, Alps, Catachans, and the like. Higher vampires are in fact much more similar to humans than those bat-like slurpers. They do not only resemble us in appearance, but they also share our intelligence and behavioral patterns. This means they do not squat in distant forests or hide in the shadows. On the contrary, they are particularly fond of cities, where they live out deceivingly normal lives. Even witchers are not capable of recognizing them at once, for their medallions remain perfectly motionless in the presence of higher vampires. Yet all these similarities should not blind us to the essential difference. Unlike men, higher vampires are immortal. Those who have faced them in combat and survived can be counted on one hand. It is a witcher's good fortune that higher vampires are extremely rare, and not all of them are dangerous to humans. Though they do have a taste for blood, they do not need to drink it to survive. Some higher vampires have renounced feeding on humans altogether and do not harm anyone. Others give in to their desires. A witcher who braves fighting a higher vampire must bear in mind that he faces a monster endowed with incredible strength, one able to manipulate men and animals, turn invisible, and transform into a giant bat, and furthermore, one which is nearly impossible to kill. In other words, even an experienced monster slayer should think twice before accepting a contract on these creatures, even if half a kingdom and a prince's hand is in the offering. Catacombs. Melitele, Great Mother, protect us from evil, from the unclean devils and foul demons, and most of all from the clutches of catacombs and nekurats, fragments of a prayer. Catacombs, and their more dangerous kin, nekurats, are embodiments of human fear. They hide in the shadows, they feed in blood, they resemble enormous bats, though with long fangs and even longer talons, and if that weren't enough, they can turn invisible, waiting unseen, while dread of their unpreventable attacks overwhelms their victims. Sarasti. We dug out a chamber. There was a beast sleeping inside. We fell over the props to collapse the ceiling, but it must have not buried the monster. Bitamir of Velen. Raiders of the Elven Tombs either get rich quickly or die trying. The end seeds, disintegrating temples and palaces hold priceless treasures, true, but within them many a foul monster waits in deep slumber. Such was the case in Bywars, where a few peasants, unaware of the dangers that they had faced, awoke an unusually dangerous Ekimara. The Witcher knew this monster would not be easy to kill. The vampire would regenerate quickly, so quickly that its The Witcher knew that the monster would not be easy to kill, that the vampire would regenerate quickly, that its blows would cause heavy bleeding, that it was able to disappear into thin air, yet he also knew that he could overcome these advantages. He needed merely to use the Eardam and Quen signs and strike heavy blows, and avoid getting killed. The vampire had already managed to kill several peasants and a patrol of heavily armed Nilfgaardians. The list of victims would surely have grown even longer had not Geralt of Rivia, the White Wolf, happened to waltz into town. Okay, so that concludes the Bestiary. I still have the Characters tab, but to be honest, this is already well over an hour of reading, so I think I'll do the Characters tab some other time. I also meet some new characters in the city. So that's it for now, and I will resume with the normal gameplay next time. So let me just save. That's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.